So recently I was informed of a game coming out called Mecha Puppers, which is just about as close to on brand for me personally as you can get without it being called Mecha Otters or something. I love otters, they're so cute. But I was checking in with the people who are working on it over the last couple of weeks and decided that I should make a list of the things that I really like to see in top-down isometric games like Mecha Puppers is going to be, and what mech games need to have in them if they're not Super Robot Tyson or the like. So let's just break it down really quick. The thing that keeps coming back over and over and over again whenever I talk to people about this is that they want customization. They want to be able to pop a mech down to its base components and pilots and stop and swap and swing them together and do all this kooky, crazy crap and make something that feels theirs. They want to take ownership of this game by taking ownership of the mechs that they're piloting, which is something that is sadly lacking from a lot of games, but is abundantly available in stuff like Gundam Breaker. So by that same token, if you want to have a really successful mech game like Gundam Breaker or like Battletech or Mech Warrior before it, which is what a lot of people my age who are into mech games grew up on, and then we transitioned into the more anime ones to mixed success, I should say, then you should probably make sure that that is available and in there. We need part swaps, we need weapon swaps, we need to be able to build our own whatever. If we want to have them be chicken walkers, if we want to have them be quadrupeds, if we want to have them regular bipeds, what have you. If we want guns, like guns where the hands are, guns on the shoulders, or held weapons, like we need to be able to have that if it fits with the design aesthetic, of course. Additionally, we want to have meaningful upgrades. And what I mean by meaningful upgrades is the idea that if I get a new part in a game, I'm not thinking to myself, oh cool, another 2% boost to my skill rank. I personally don't want to do a spreadsheet every time I try to build a mech. Like, okay, this increases my armor by 10% or 20% or 15%, that sort of thing. I don't want a 2% increase in my health. I want a substantial one that I can see on the bar or what have you. Like, I can carry 2% more ammo, that's like 3 shots. Or I can carry 25% ammo, which means something more important and meaningful. In this modern gaming world, you'd also be able to break down these items and craft them into better ones as you get them. And while that's fairly normal, it's not a necessity by any stretch. Finally, on this topic, if you're gonna have customizable weapons and guns, gotta have a customizable paint scheme too. Helmets and flight suits for your characters, and paint schemes that resemble famous mechs throughout history, because if there's one thing that gearheads like me really like, it's that we have this encyclopedic knowledge of these shows and whatnot, and are like, hey, I want to make my thing look like this, or I want to kit it out and make it look like that. And if you have paint schemes in place that look recognizable and have them labeled as like EVO Unit 1 or something, or just call it Unit 1, or call it like Rick's Custom Paint or Hikaru's Custom Paint, having it all red be called Comet, you know, that sort of thing, people will gravitate to you because you know what they're about, and two, appreciate the really obscure ones. That means that you and your players are having a conversation, and that conversation is, I like these mechs. How do you like them? Do you like to put this paint scheme on your stuff? Well, here, we know you like that, so here's this. Another thing that I have always liked to see in mech games is the ability to, and it's called instant action in a lot of these things. In sports games, it's called exhibition mode. Ideally, you would take whatever, you would just throw a mech together, maybe a prefab, or maybe one that you've built, and have in a long list of stuff that you've already built. You take it and you dump it into the match. You pick which enemies you want to fight, you put your custom stuff on it, maybe it's all unlocked, maybe you have to play through the campaign to unlock it, but like there's challenge levels, but it's just solve the combat puzzle by blowing up the other guys. It's simple, it comes together fast, and people appreciate it when they can just sit down and play your game and get what it's about without having to go through a long campaign mode. Because campaigns are great, but if you're going to do anything like that, you need to also just have this super basic mode for whatever. And to go along with that, you need to make sure that if you have bosses or, important story missions, you need to make sure that you can play through that with whatever you have built. If a player's build is suboptimal, they should still be able to get through your game. Now, maybe they'll take damage, maybe they'll lose a couple of mechs on the way, but that's fine because they still got through it and they can recover. And ideally, if this is the case, then they would have their mechanics clearly explained. That sort of thing would lead into my final point. It needs to be accessible. You need to be able to play this no matter what your situation is. If you have problems manipulating a mouse because of whatever, if you have certain color blindness, the game needs to accommodate for that, which is super easy to do. You need to make sure that there's no super flashy lights or anything. Or if there is, there's an option to put it in epileptic mode to make sure nobody has, seizure while playing your game. I don't think that happens very much anymore, but I'm thinking back to old 90s games and ooh. But ultimately, the way they make a successful mech game is to cater without pandering and make sure that everybody who wants to play your game for a limited amount of time is able to. Pick a map, pick a mech, go. That's the heart of instant action, and they can go back and play your campaign mode later, but we want also to be able to just plunk some stuff down and go. That's more important to a game's longevity than I think a lot of people realize. The ability to just come back, do a mission, put it down, and then do it again the next day without worrying about furthering the story or failing in a campaign is what ends up bringing people back day after day and doing just that. This is kind of an aside, but in this case, given the subject material, I do hope there's some sort of ejector system for the pilots, or they're just shown running away from a wrecked machine, or have little stars around their eyes before they fade out. They're too cute to watch get blown up for reals. At any rate, if this game does get kicked out the door feature complete like this, it's a solid framework to add stuff in from. DLC campaigns, new mechs, pilot outfits, they can all be added in easily once the fundamentals are secure. Now, not that I had to be sold on this game anyway, but I'm certainly waiting excitedly to see what this ends up looking like, and I hope anyone who's watching this is equally excited now too. So, hey, how about that mecha otter thing, huh? That being said, this is Professor Otaku, the greatest American anime critic, signing off.